Hi, everybody. This is Brenda Thompson, and you are viewing the Just Show Up podcast, where we interview agents and talk about their journeys in real estate, the problems that they may have experienced and overcome, and just a general chat for some fun. So today we have Emma Killingsworth with us. And Emma, I'm so glad that you're with us, and welcome to Just Show Up.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Good. Okay, so let's dive right in and let's talk a little bit about your real estate journey. I know that for many it's not your first real estate career or not first career. Tell us about what brought you into real estate and then what your journey has been like so far.
Yeah. So, like you said, I did not start in real estate. I had a career in car sales for about 5 years before I jumped into real estate. And I actually ended up in car sales because I dropped out of college. So I'm a college dropout, like I think a few other real estate agents are.
Quite a few. Yes.
Yes, I tends to be school is not something that a lot of real estate agents love. We don't like to be sitting still. We like to be moving and learning in action. So school was just not it for me. I did not enjoy it. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was just kind of there because I felt like I needed to be there. But I ended up dropping out of college and just kind of ended up in the car dealership world. I started as a receptionist at a car dealership, and then I transferred into car sales because I kind of thought, maybe sales might be up my alley. I really love working with people. So I was there for 5 years before I decided that I needed a change. I learned so much, and that's kind of where I fell in love with sales. So I enjoyed the sales aspect of it. And the people aspect. I'm
Mhm.
definitely a people person, so I loved that aspect of it. But the car sales itself just wasn't, it didn't sit right with me.
Wasn't the product you wanted.
Exactly. Yeah. There were some really wonderful things about it. And like I said, I learned so much, but
Mhm.
it just never felt like it was where I was meant to be. And so I thought, well, if I love the sales aspect and the people aspect of car sales, maybe I just need to try a different product. And
Mhm.
so real estate had always been in the back of my mind. I think a
Okay.
lot of people kind of think, well, maybe
Yes.
if nothing works out, I'll do real estate. So I had always kind of thought it was a possibility. And so if I gave it a try, I decided, let me get my license, let me see what this is about. And I really jumped right into it from car sales into real estate. And so that's kind of how I ended up here.
And I could see where that journey makes so much sense because you were dealing with people and all types of personalities, all types of people. So I could see where that would translate very well over into real estate. And people tend to be happy when they're buying a car, just like they tend to be by the time
Yes,
they get to closing and everything's done, then they're excited about their purchase. So I could see where
for sure.
a lot of those would translate very well over into real estate.
Absolutely. Yeah, it did. And I think that's really where I gained a lot of my confidence in sales
Mhm.
because
I'm sure.
reality is if you can sell a car, I mean, it sounds like it would be more difficult to sell a house, but in my opinion, cars are even more difficult to sell. So I think that if you can, kind of get the experience and kind of just understand what sales is, then you can
Mhm.
really sell anything, in my opinion. And so, like you said, it kind of blended naturally into real estate for sure.
Uh-huh. I think so too. So has there been anything that's been a big surprise in real estate that took you a little off guard? Like, oh, I didn't expect that.
Honestly, mainly good surprises. Of course, it was a surprise at how difficult it is. I think, all the shows like Selling Sunset and stuff make it look very glamorous and very, I don't want to say easy. But it portrays it that it's just kind of, you just show a house and then boom, it's done. So I kind of had a little bit of that in my mind. Like I wasn't expecting it to be, it's really a taxing job. I mean, it's very, you have to put in effort every single day.
Yes.
It's not something that you can just cross your fingers and hope deals come to you.
Mm.
And so I think I was a little bit surprised at how much work that it took. But that was a good surprise for me because I needed that. I think I need a job that challenges me. I just kind of have that type of personality where I get very stir crazy if I don't have a challenge. And so it was a good surprise, but definitely a wake up call when I jumped into it and realized, "Oh, crap, like this is going to be some hard work." But also a lot of good surprises too. I think I was very pleasantly surprised at how many people were willing to put their trust in me. Um, you kind of jump into it. And especially, I mean, I got my license when I was 25. And so
Okay.
I was a very young, yeah, I still am a young real estate agent compared to people who are doing it for decades and, have been in this career for a really long time. And so I went into it kind of thinking, oh, how am I going to compete with these people who, have so much more experience than me and so much more knowledge and time in the field. And so I was pleasantly surprised that people were willing to put their trust in me, and even a young person who hadn't been doing it for very long. I thought, man, like I'm so honored that people would trust me to help them with such a big purchase. So good and
Mhm.
bad surprises, but I think mainly good.
That's good. I like hearing that. So, is there anything that you feel like you're missing right now that might take you to a different level? Or is there a different level or a different niche that you're hoping to do?
So my focus so far in real estate has been first time homebuyers. That's kind of
Okay.
what I decided, I wanted to focus on. I felt like I had the most in common with them, age wise and just life experience. And so it kind of naturally ended up being that I worked with a lot of first time homebuyers. I think as the years go on and as I stay in real estate, I think I would like to kind of go, a little bit more luxury and a little bit more higher price point. And of course, that's going to be a totally different set of clients and a different type of knowledge that you have to bring. And so, I'm not looking to just jump into that right away, but I do see it being a little bit of a challenge to kind of transfer from hand holding with the first time buyers to people who have done many real estate transactions before and have a different set of expectations for the real estate agent.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that's my goal. And I think that's kind of naturally happen as I've been in real estate for a longer time, but hopefully I get there.
Well, you're going to get that to that point though soon where you start to have repeat clients, that have been in their home for 4 or 5 years and they call you back again and say, "Hey, change in life circumstances. We need bigger, we need smaller, we need to move for a job." And so then you have those second buyers. They're not first time home buyers anymore. So you'll start to naturally kind of gravitate toward that. I can see where it would make sense for you to start in the first time home buyer level because that's probably a lot of what your natural sphere of influence is, for especially
Yes.
when you started at 25. That's a great pathway to set for yourself.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so I love to ask this question always too. Is there anything, so think about a story in real estate, like the funniest or most memorable, or maybe even like the horror story, the closing that went bad. So do you have any stories for us?
I do. Well, this was actually a pretty recent deal, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus or anything like
Sure.
that, but it was an absolute just mess of a deal. I mean, what's crazy is, and this was actually so. Funnily enough, I helped my dad sell my childhood home, the home that I grew up in.
Oh, that's a little emotional for everyone.
Yes, so there were already a lot of emotions involved, right? We were in this house for 20 plus years. It was an emotional deal already, and then you mix in extra drama and it was an absolute mess. And what's funny was it started off completely smooth sailing. The buyers were super happy with everything. We came to a deal right away. Like it wasn't difficult negotiating or anything off the bat. And then things just went totally south. I mean, after the inspection, it
So
came
okay,
it
so this is after you got under contract and then it
yes, after we got
okay.
under yeah, so we got under contract very quickly, and then the inspection came back and, there was it was PVC and it was just a mess, and it went so far. I don't wanna go into all the drama of it because it's such a long story, I would take up an hour, but it went so far that the lawyers within my brokerage ended up having to get involved, and my broker had to get involved and the lawyers on the other side of the deal had to get involved. It was just, and honestly, I think it was good that I had this experience with my dad because, I was able to be a little bit more comfortable with him and kind of, straightforward, like this is a mess.
Uh-huh.
And so I could kind of be a little bit more straightforward with him as opposed to if I had a client that, I didn't know my entire life, I would have to,
Uh-huh.
be a little bit more gentle about like the news and stuff. But it was definitely a learning experience. I think I learned so much of what not to do from that deal. So thank goodness. And and ended up working out in the end, which it tends to do. Things
Good.
usually end up working out, and everything is figure outable, as I like to say. So
I
I
like that
kind of tried
term.
to have that. Yeah, I tried to have that mindset through it that, okay, this is just teaching me something that I need to learn within real estate, even though at the time it was the most stressful thing I had dealt with in my career. Afterwards, I look back on it now and I think, okay, well, thank goodness that happened to me now at this point in my career, because I learned so much that now, I won't ever make those mistakes again or overlook things again. And then it really taught me so much, which I think failures and messy situations tend to do is they teach us something afterwards.
So what kind of things do you think are next for you? Like I know we talked about luxury kind of maybe in the future, distant future. Is there anything like right now that you're thinking I want to do now?
Good question. I mean, honestly, just build my database and my sphere. I've grown up in DFW, and so I'm blessed to know a lot of people here, but I am always looking to meet new people and add people to my sphere and just connect with all different types of people. Not necessarily people who are wanting to do a real estate transaction right away, but just people to add to my life who, maybe I can add value to their life or vice versa, and maybe not even real estate related.
Mm.
But I think that's really my main goal right now is just getting involved in the community, getting involved in, friendships that maybe were in my past and I've kind of, let fall off or whatever. But just getting in front of as many people as possible, I would say, is kind of my goal right now.
Always have a good excuse to pick up the phone and talk to people. You know,
Yeah.
like if there's someone we think of and we think, I just want to pick up the phone and say, hey, how are you doing? Did you know this is what I'm doing? And if you ever need me, I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be like salesy, is kind of what I've learned. And I was very afraid of that at the beginning of my career because I did not want to sound salesy. I didn't want
Uh-huh.
people to feel like I only want to be in your life because I want to sell you a house, because that's not true. I genuinely love people and I love the people in my life. And if they happen to do a transaction with me, great, and I would hope to be of value to them. But if not, I think it's just about, community and spreading love and stuff, so that's all.
Well, and that was gonna be one of my next questions, and you almost have answered it already, but how do you find the ability or the way to balance life and work? Because our work is not Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
No, not at all. Honestly, I think my work life and my personal life are just kind of intermingled. Anyone in my personal life, my friends, my family, they know that any conversation we have is going to have real estate in it in one way or another because I truly love my job. And the people in my life know that because I talk about it all the time. And so it just kind of happens that, if I go to pickleball every Monday and I always have some type of conversation about real estate, whether I want to or not, it comes up because the people that
Sure.
I'm around just kind of know that's what I enjoy talking about. And so I don't really feel like I have to separate the two necessarily. I kind of just mix them together. I tend to do most of my deals are with my sphere, with my friends and family or friends of friends. And that's because it's not to me, it's not separate in my brain. It's kind of
Uh-huh.
like my work has to do with my personal life because I love my job and I also love the people in my life. And so they kind of just intertwine.
They fit together.
Yeah. So I don't find the balance to be that difficult. I mean, yes, the timing and, our schedule can get kind of crazy, but I just accept it. I've never really had a 9 to 5 job, so it's not anything new to me.
That's true. Your previous career was not 9 to 5 either. So this show is called Just Show Up. And so one of the other questions I like to ask always too is what do you find that you either have to always show up for or needs to show up for you, whether it be business or personal, like or a tool? What's the one thing that you must always have around?
I think if I narrow it down to one thing, I think it would tie back to my last answer, and that's honestly my sphere. So my one thing is, and people in my life will attest to this. I am very big on spending time with my friends and my family. And so my sphere is kind of like my mandatory, I don't want to call it a lead generation source, but it naturally becomes one. But my sphere and social media, I would say. And those kind of go together, because most of my
Sure.
social media is made up of my sphere. But just staying plugged in to the people in my life and making sure that, I don't just go ghost on people or anything like that. Maintaining my friendships and my relationships, that's my one thing. And that kind of leads naturally to deals, I would say.
I love that, and I think your sphere is gonna be happy to hear that they are your one thing,
They're
so
my
that's
priority.
awesome.
They are.
That's it.
And I hope they feel it.
That's it. Okay, well, is there anything that you would love to leave with our audience, a story or a thought that you wanna wrap up on today?
I would just say, I think something that has really made a difference in not just my real estate career, but also my life lately the past few years is making friends with fear. That's kind of been like my mantra is be friends with fear because in my opinion, a confident person is someone who is afraid but does it anyways. And that's kind of how I try to be, because a lot of people will see you doing scary things and think, "Oh my gosh, like, I wish I wasn't ever afraid. Like I wish I, just had that kind of confidence." And the reality is I am afraid all the time. It's just the only difference is that I'm okay with being afraid and I do it anyways, And I think that's led to so many good experiences both in my personal life and in my professional career that I've been able to be like, "Okay, I'm terrified to do this, whatever it may be, whether it's, door knocking or calling up someone who I haven't spoken to in years or whatever, whatever it may be that just gives us normal anxiety. I accept that anxiety and I say, okay, I'm terrified right now to do this, but what's the worst that can happen? I'm not going to die. And usually, not usually, pretty much always after I've done that thing that I'm afraid of, I look back and I say, oh my gosh, it was not that bad. Like I was making it way bigger in my head. And I'm so glad
Which
that
we
I did
tend
it.
to do.
Yes, we do as
We do.
humans, and that's natural.
I recently heard a children's book author talking about fear and bravery, and she said, "Think about it." And so she's thinking about things from a child's perspective, but she said, "Think about it, bravery does not exist without fear. Like, you couldn't be brave. Bravery simply wouldn't be there if there wasn't something you were about to do that gave you a little bit of halt or a little bit of trepidation." So literally bravery doesn't exist unless there's fear that you're facing. And I
Exactly.
loved the way, again, I mean, she's pulling it down to the mind of a child, but I love the way that that came off because I thought, that's so true. And
It's
it is
absolutely
just
true.
it's just the part about working through that and becoming brave, working through the fear.
Yes, absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, Emma, it has been a joy talking to you today, and I'm so glad that you could join us on Just Show Up. And I hope that we can talk again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
This episode has been sponsored by HomeSmart Stars. Agents, do you feel unseen, unheard? Maybe wish you had better commission. Maybe wish that you were welcomed and encouraged to show up, to just show up as you are and be your true, authentic self, and have all the training and support and tools to help you thrive in your real estate career. If so, then you need to reach out to HomeSmart Stars and make HomeSmart Stars your home for real estate.